Welcome to today's episode of the Hot and Steamy podcast. We'd like to first recognize our sponsors, Kelly Garza of Steamy Chick and Kimberly Ann Johnson of Maga Mamas. Follow them on Instagram at Steamy Chick and at Maga Mamas.
Hot, steamy, hot, steamy, hot, steamy, hot, steamy, hot, steamy.
Okay, so we're all ready to introduce you to today's guest, and we're very excited to have her. She is absolutely brilliant. I learn stuff from her, honestly, every single day. Thank you, social media, and thank you, Kristin's genius. So this is my friend, Kristin Gonzalez.
Hey.
Welcome to the Hot and Steamy podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I am just going to read Kristin's bio so you guys can just kind of get a little understanding of what she's bringing to the show today. So Kristin Gonzalez is a licensed acupuncturist, board-certified herbalist, and guide into the lost art of radical self-care called Nourishing Life, or Yang Sheng. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yang Sheng.
Yang Sheng. The principles are based on preservation of health, not just treatment of disease. The methods promote health and longevity and guides us away from those that might cause harm. She teaches her clients how to gain an understanding of their biological rhythms within the lens of Chinese medicine. She educates on gracefully approaching the 7-8 year cycles of life, menstrual attunement, and longevity medicine. She is a certified healer within practice leader with the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, and is also certified in the therapeutic application of essential oils, Aroma AcuTouch. Chris is the resident acupuncturist for Peristeam Hydrotherapy Institute / Steamy Chick, which is how we met, where she provides herbal consultations and education on perineal steaming for healing gynecological and andrological conditions using steam and smoke therapy, also known as fumigation therapy in Chinese medicine. Yay, thank you for being here.
Woo-hoo.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want our audience to know about you that wasn't included in that bio?
I think that about sums it up, but I just kind of expanding on the 7 and 8 year cycles. So it's kind of the whole landscape of our experience as humans. And so for those of us that have a uterus, it's all the way from menarche to menopause. Yeah. So kind of cycling through those to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm. And for our audiences, including my husband, have you heard the term menarche before?
Nope.
Can you just tell us what menarche is?
Yeah. So menarche is when you actually first start your period.
Isn't it nice that there's one word for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like how they all start with M's. Menarche, matrescence, and menopause.
Mama.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So some of our audience members know very little about acupuncture. I like to think I know a lot about it. I've gotten lots of acupuncture treatments, but my husband has never had
No.
an acupuncture
Never
treatment.
had the needles.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what most people think of,
Yeah.
just
like,
becoming a human pincushion.
why would I pay you to hurt me? But yeah.
So, and also just in general, I feel like maybe know very little about traditional Chinese medicine. Well, some of our audience members will know a lot.
Yeah.
Could you give us just a brief explanation of TCM sort of theory and then also acupuncture?
Yeah, sure. So when there's a Chinese medicine practitioner, it encompasses more than acupuncture. And I think a lot of times you associate, Chinese medicine, you automatically think acupuncture, but there's so much more to it. Acupuncture is just kind of this modality. So if you go to see your acupuncturist, there's more to it. It's about viewing your life through the lens of nature. And so this could be done with lifestyle practices, kind of shifting lifestyle. It can be done with herbal medicine medicine, body work like tuina or guasa therapy, which is kind of like the scraping, cupping, nutrition, food therapy. And of course, acupuncture is kind of what we're most known for, because I think that's something that could be kind of scientifically, verified, I guess. If I put this point here, what does it do in the body, et cetera, et cetera. And so for us in the West, we need like more linear kind of explanation for things. And so acupuncture is just one of those things that can possibly be scientifically studied. But it's an ancient medicine. And the fact that it's still around today, I feel like speaks volumes. It's a medicine steeped in a real foundation of our connection to nature and kind of viewing our body within that kind of understanding that we're deeply connected to nature, but then that we are also nature. And so when we kind of learn to kind of tap into that rhythm, then that's where wellness happens. That's when healing happens. Yeah. And we can feel like the most vital. So with acupuncture, what typically happens is you come in and your practitioner might notice just some kind of patterns that come up that are kind of working against you. And so acupuncture tries to remedy those. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I didn't know if I told you this, but we're moving back to California in about a month.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, of course we can get acupuncture here in Atlanta, but I feel like it's like covered under regular
normal
insurance there. Like it's just so much more accessible. So
Yeah.
would you be willing to try it?
Of course.
Get out there. Okay.
Of course I'll try it.
We'll
I
see.
think you'd like it.
Yeah, I do too.
You do have to find the right practitioner for you. Just like with any therapy, you have to resonate with it,
Mm-hmm.
So I can't just like find a random strip mall.
Sometimes those are the best ones. So.
Truly.
He has had an acutonic treatment with the tuning forks.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we had that.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I know you as an acupuncturist and also as an expert on sort of maintaining female reproductive health. I took such a wonderful class with you. But your bio is telling me that I know so little about all that you do. Like, I of course guess now. Of course I know that you are a certified herbalist. Like, it makes so much sense. But can you talk a bit about how you came into this work? Like, what drew you to wanting to be this kind of healer?
Yeah, I think it's always kind of been in my blood, honestly. I'm a really sensorial person. And so my mom's Korean. She's from South Korea. And my dad, he's a white man, he's American. And so I feel like that kind of duality really reflected in my life growing up. And so my life in Korea and the times that we lived and visited there in comparison to our life here in the US was really drastically different. And so I feel like I could tell the differences even from a really kind of small age. And so I have really vivid memories of all these sensorial things, like, the smell of herbs cooking in the kitchen and, my great aunt or my great grandma doing like body work on me if my tummy was hurting. I remember like them twisting like a string on my finger and like pricking it with a needle to do some bloodletting, Yeah. And also only going to see the blind acupuncturist in town because they were the best, right?
Nice.
All of their other senses were heightened because they couldn't see. And that was just a known thing. So I feel like that kind of imprinted, not that I kind of knew exactly that I wanted to be, that kind of a healer that early on, but I think it just kind of, got into my bones a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think living in the U.S. and I don't think that the kind of Western diet really kind of was the best for me. So I actually ended up getting really sick when I was 13 and rushed to the hospital and emergency surgery. And I ended up having this condition called Crohn's. And so since 13, I've had that on my radar. Like, I have Crohn's, I have this kind of digestive disease, you know? Yeah. So the typical kind of medical route, you know, when they find out that you have this kind of condition, is you need to be on immunosuppressants and steroids for pretty much the rest of your life. But because I think thank goodness I had my mom there with me. And I think me personally, it just did not feel right. You know, like that was the only thing that I could do. Mm-hmm. So we just didn't do that from the get-go, mm-hmm. you know, and I haven't had surgery since I was 13. I've been able to manage it with, you know, dietary, lifestyle practices, acupuncture, herbs, and I've had pockets of time where it's been really hard, but you just kind of lean back on the kind of confidence and faith that your body can heal if you just give it the right ingredients that it needs at that time. It's communicating, you know. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. I've just had to heed that, even though maybe I want to kind of progress in some way because my mind is telling mm-hmm. me to, but my body's like, mm-hmm. no.
Yeah.
Just
sit down.
Chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. When I was very young, I think I knew I wanted to be a healer, but then I just sort of grabbed a different narrative. Like I just sort of copied and pasted a different narrative onto my life. And I'm just now kind of getting back to that person. Okay, great. So I've taken a very interesting and informative class with you on Jade Gate Health, which is maintaining a healthy vulva and vagina. It was really amazing. And I was really so surprised to learn how integral gut health is mm-hmm. to vaginal health. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship and why they're so closely related?
Yeah. So in the human body, it's like a continuation of this mucosal lining that starts all the way kind of in your nasal passages, your oral passages, your throat, esophagus, intestines, you know, and then it continues in that kind of mucosal layer through your urinary tract and also your vaginal tract. But I guess I kind of like to, you know, have visualizations, because sometimes when you're talking body parts, people just don't seem to connect it. But then when you like visualize, like just imagine, you know, like an ecosystem and like the top of the mountain, how the water collects there and it influences everything down on the shore. You know, mm-hmm. it's whatever is happening up north is going to happen down south, you know, because mm-hmm. it's kind of this downriver thing, and then vice versa. Yeah. So I mean, it's like teeming with this like whole life cycle with like microbiota and everything like that. And so if something is going awry in your gut and it's kind of linked through this kind of mucosal connection, it's going to influence whatever's going on down there too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. So mm-hmm. How does this show up in the postpartum space? Like, I know, I'm the only Asian culture I'm really, really familiar with is Korean. But I know in mm-hmm. Korean culture, when my homegirls were having their kids afterwards, there was during pregnancy and during postpartum, they were very regimented on what they ate. Can you talk about why? Like, I feel like here it's just like eat, like whatever you do, just eat. Whereas there it's like eat these hot cereals and eat these particular soups with these particular ingredients and eat them this much of it. If you aren't hungry, you still need to eat more of it because you need this amount and that kind of stuff. So can you explain why it is that way?
Yeah. So because there's this concept of your body being so closely tied to nature, you're also at the whim of it. So when you have specific things kind of prescribed to you, like meals. They're usually warmed. They're usually cooked, right? Because there's a concept of if cold enters the body, it can stagnate things. It can impede flow. It can impede circulation. When at that particular time in your life, when you're pregnant and postpartum, you do not want things to be stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can imagine, you're growing a baby inside of you, things are already tight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and there's no room for anything. So we always want to encourage this free flow of fluid, free flow of blood, free flow of just lymph, you know, that kind of stuff. And so the concept is if you're introducing all these kind of cold, raw, uncooked things, that doesn't really spark digestive process, and it doesn't encourage the circulation and free flow of things. And then the nourishment factor comes into mind, because specifically postpartum, everything is taxed. Your chi, which is like your vital energy, your prana, your life force, is taxed. Your blood is taxed. You've shed so much, and you're continuing to shed for a couple weeks, right? And so if we meet your body where it's at, and we understand you are completely depleted at that point, how can we replenish that? Is it through cold smoothies and, you know, iced coffee drinks and like a salad? Or is it going to be like a porridge and bone broth and seaweed soup and eggs and, you know, that kind of stuff? You know, how are we really going to help the mother recover fully in a vulnerable state? That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
That's really good information. That's really good for me to even think about. Mainly because I didn't know that was even like a possibility or an option.
Which part?
Well,
which
I mean,
part
I guess
was,
I knew. I mean, like you said, in our culture, it's just like taking calories. Like, just do whatever you can, eat whatever you want. It's fine. You need it. But I didn't, you know, in the back of my mind, I guess I realized that you can, you know, you'd be really deliberate about the types of foods and the types of vitamins and minerals and stuff that are coming in. But I guess I hadn't thought about it being so regimented. You know, I hadn't thought about like the schedule and the, you know, the frequency and stuff. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's great that you point that out, because I think it is kind of this general misunderstanding about what really happens to us postpartum. It's not like we can just kind of bounce back, even though that's kind of like, I think culturally, what's promoted, right? Let's get you back into blah, blah, blah.
Let's get you back out there into the workplace, guys. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's great that you point that out, because I think there's just this like kind of feeling that they're fine. They're going to just bounce right back. And there's not a real kind of effort to understand the mechanisms of exactly what is happening and what could happen if that care is not taken. I mean, just the amount of money that's in really birth trauma and the things that happen postpartum is really ignored. But it's really pervasive, you know, the amount of trauma that happens after birth, after again and again each time. So there's not this care to really, and if you think about it, it's like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, like that's not really that much time in the span of your lifetime to really just hone in and just dedicate time to real rest and recovery, you know?
Yeah. And what was occurring to me actually when both of you were sort of talking is that what I've retained about what I should be concerned about postpartum is like losing weight, like not nourishing and getting like luxuriating. Like it should be like the opposite, like get it off, like get back to looking like nothing happened.
Yeah, looking like
And
you
it's-
didn't experience a huge change in
Yeah.
your body. you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
And look like you are not now someone's food source. Like you still need so much. Like you need to be taking in so much so that you can nourish yourself and another whole like living human thing.
Yeah, so that's so true. I feel like
Just that
the
living
mindset
human
is
thing.
more towards how can I shed more?
Yeah.
You know, how can I lose this baby weight really fast?
Yeah.
Where I think in other cultures, it's like that will happen naturally if you nourish yourself properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like there's not a real effort into like making that happen. It just kind of naturally happens with belly binding. It happens with resting. It happens with nourishing yourself so that milk comes in, so that actually helps the whole, natural kind of weight loss and contracting the uterus to come back into place. Like your body is intelligent and knows how to do it. It just needs to be supported in that effort.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So speaking of this change, from your social media posts, I learn all kinds of things about the 3 changes that we talked about earlier. Will you just give like a little more detail about those 3 changes? I feel like they were called the golden 3. Was that it? Am I forgetting?
Yeah, the 3 golden opportunities.
Yes, that's what it is. Can you talk about why these are important?
Yeah. So for those of us that have a uterus, to understand kind of the 3 golden opportunities, you have to understand the concept of Jing essence. And so Jing essence is basically like the most dense physicality of yourself, and menstrual blood is kind of a manifestation of Jing essence.
Okay.
And so if you kind of come in with that understanding that you have a certain amount of Jing essence in your lifetime, there's this real effort to kind of conserve it. Yeah, so I think if you come in with that understanding that how precious this Jing essence is and that you only come in with a certain amount, and that in order to kind of feed into longevity, you need to replenish it at these 3 golden opportunities. And if you don't, it kind of really wreaks havoc on our specific constitutions.
Mm-hmm.
So Jing essence, it's almost like your DNA, basically. It's kind of like your inheritance. And so there's a lot of effort and emphasis in Chinese medicine to always monitor your Jing essence and the quantity and quality that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 golden opportunities where we can really kind of have influence on either enhancing or wreaking havoc on our Jing essence are these 3 golden opportunities. So it's through menstruation, postpartum, and perimenopause. So these are 3 key times for those of us that have uteruses to really pay attention to the Jing loss. Menstrual blood is Jing loss. Every single month, we kind of cycle and lose a little bit of Jing. Postpartum, that's like our biggest Jing loss because we're just so taxed overall.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not mindful to make sure that we're kind of replenishing our Jing at that time, we can kind of move forward with that in the not the best way. We don't feel fully recovered. And then we're just kind of working off of like an empty tank, basically. Yeah. And then perimenopause is like the other opportunity to really kind of monitor the status of our Jing. Mm-hmm.
Do men have an opportunity to monitor their Jing or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So their reflection of Jing is in sperm. Mm-hmm. So of course there's like all these practices to kind of, filter it back into the body versus like ejaculating all the time. And so there's a book on it, The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity. If you want to look into that.
Thank you. Yeah.
But other things like, so the Jing is kind of housed in our kidneys and our adrenals.
Mm-hmm.
So how we can tell that our Jing is pretty much crashed is the same kind of Western concepts of like an adrenal burnout. That's how we can tell that our kidney, our Jing is pretty much taxed.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should we get into the steaming stuff?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, my first question is, can you talk a little bit about the difference between vaginal steaming and vaginal smoking?
Mm-hmm.
Do you practice
Yeah.
both?
So they're similar in a sense that they warm and circulate. So they have that in common. But the differences are in kind of their function. So for steaming, I feel like it really helps to kind of soften and kind of liquefy, to help kind of a shedding happen if shedding is not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So things that are really stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So it has this like liquefying quality to it. But then smoking is really a consolidation that happens. It really serves to kind of bring things to center, you know?
Mhm.
So it has like a lifting quality and a real kind of stoking a fire that might be missing kind
Mhm.
of quality, like
Mhm.
really deep. Like it happens on like a really deep level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool. I haven't really learned much at all about moxibustion. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to get into a space where I'm ready to start like reading and seeing how it's done. But I feel like when I've seen what I thought was steaming in, where was I? Oh, like Sudanese culture. I feel like they do smoking before a wedding. Like it's like a
Yeah.
pre-wedding.
So they use acacia wood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They use acacia wood and then they, you know, it kind of seeps into their skin and they just smell amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. we have a good friend who's Sudanese, and she always just says like Sudanese women understand scent and aroma and fragrance better than anyone in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some pictures actually that I can share with you of that practice. So they normally just kind of, and it's like even after getting married, they still kind of practice this. And I read that they actually miss the practice when they live over here in the West and not back at home. They actually miss that practice.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but they usually kind of dig a hole in the ground and make kind of like a little furnace, and they put the wood down there and they have like a sitting contraption on top and they cover themselves, and it's basically incense, like and it has qualities in it that's very nourishing and circulating, and it has like even like kind of antimicrobial qualities to it. So it's a cleansing, it's a bath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I know acacia trees are an intensely medicinal tree. So I can imagine. Yeah. That fumigating with it would be great.
Yes.
Okay. So is vaginal smoking used in Korean culture as well?
Yeah, there's when I go in 2021 on the family reunion, I'm going to this one specific kind of clinic or spa that basically does this. It's called Jwahun therapy. And so they use all kinds of herbs, not only moxa or mugwort, they use all kinds of herbs in this kind of smoke therapy. Yeah. So I'm going to go pick their brains about that.
Do males use this kind of smoke therapy as well?
Yeah. So speaking of, like, if you were to go to Korea and live there nowadays, like if you were to watch TV, they have like a QVC kind of equivalent channel. So you're like flipping, you'll see like these advertisements for these contraptions, these chairs that you can have in your house where you do smoke and steam therapy. Both male and females benefit from that warmth in the core. Yeah.
I just can't get like a barbecue out of my head.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not that warm, but I can see why that visual comes to your mind. But for males, typically, what one of my teachers says is you want to keep a hot rod but cool balls, right? So you always want to make sure that your scrotum is not really exposed. It's more your perineal area. And in your perineal area, it'll rise and kind of go in to like the prostate and the general kind of area to improve circulation, heal any kind of swelling that might be there, stagnation of fluids. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that why you think of a barbecue. I think in the same way that like people who have never done vaginal steaming or pelvic steaming think it's gonna be like a train, like choo choo, like they think it's gonna be like, or like a power washer. Like they think it's just gonna be like so like intense. Yeah, and it's not like it's not very low temperatures. It's soothing.
They're like, you mean the thing that I sit on the stove and it like whistles? I mean, like steam like that?
Oh no!
It's like just like in a spa. It's like a dry sauna and a wet sauna. Like it's soothing.
Yeah,
but just localized.
Okay. It's very subtle.
Yeah. It's so funny. A barbecue. So, did you personally use either of these after childbirth?
I did for both, but I did it differently. And so I learned from the first time.
Oh, no.
So the first time, there was a lot going on. So I actually didn't start right away. But what prompted me to start is because I had some irritation down there and it didn't feel like it was healing correctly. And so then I started to steam consistently every day until that subsided. And then I stopped. And then for my second, I pretty much started right away, which was, I learned from the first time that that was beneficial. So I healed a lot quickly, but I didn't do it like every day. I just kind of sporadically did it. But for like the first couple days, I did do it consistently. And then I kind of tapered off and did like once or twice, the following kind of weeks and stuff. But I mean, I could tell the difference from actually starting, a lot quicker. I healed faster, recovered faster. Yeah.
Would you mind giving some details into like you healed in what ways? Like you had more energy, or your inflammation went down, or
more geared towards like the tissues down there.
Okay.
Because I mean, for any of us that have actually given vaginal birth, that whole area down there is just feeling a bit sore, raw, tender, sometimes sharp, sometimes really itchy as it's healing. So that whole sensation down there just feels a bit vulnerable, right? And then we're also kind of shedding at the same time with the lochia. So it's not like you have that and it can heal really quickly. The lochia is continually kind of creating more kind of exposure to things, right? As things are coming out. And so, I mean, ideally in my mind, I wonder if like open bleeding without kind of the diaper thing would be so much better, because I mean, with the diaper thing, like you're continually kind of holding that moisture there,
and there's no circulation.
I don't know why that just dawned on me right now. Yeah. Just kind of freely, So for me, the first time, that issue was really a lot more intense. The first time I didn't have sutures. I didn't have an episiotomy. I didn't tear, but that sensitivity was just like right on the edges, right on both edges. It was just so raw and like irritated. And so when I started to steam, it brought so much relief to that area. And it almost felt like it was just kind of cleaning out the areas that I couldn't get with the Steam bottle. So it just felt nice. And so the second time around, same thing. I didn't tear. I didn't have an episiotomy, and no sutures or anything. But I started the steam a lot sooner, weeks sooner, actually. And so that whole thing didn't happen for me. It seemed to kind of like heal a lot quicker down there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I always feel like the more I know, the better prepared I'll be. And then my friends are all like, you
No.
can be prepared. You're never going to actually be ready. Like, so
It is a rite of passage. No, it's true. You just really do not know. And I think also the other thing, you don't know that kind of tired. You really don't know that kind of tired until after you have a baby and you're up every couple hours, maybe constantly
So
feeding, healing, like that whole thing. You just don't know that kind of tired until you're there.
yeah. My sister-in-law, after she had actually my niece who's visiting now, she was just like, I never understood the true definition of exhaustion. Like, now, finally, I feel like that word, it even sounds like how you move when you say it, like how you sort of lose in the middle, like exhaust. Like she's like, that's really this is what it means, what I'm feeling right now, like having nothing. Yeah. So interesting.
It's a depletion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, if you think about it, you're coming from a place of so much abundance, so many hormones. And then the next, not second, but it's like within like a day, all those hormones are rushing out of you. And so I think that's another reason why postpartum care is so important, because there's not that realization that everything just shifts within like a day or two, you know, everything. Wow. You're coming from so much abundance to depletion.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about and learn.
So the support is really crucial, right? At that time, and accepting help, having a postpartum plan, like accepting that people are going to come over and cook and clean and do all the things that you think that you have to do. And no, the only focus is recovering, loving up on your baby, and just being in all that pleasure.
Can I ask you both where I guess how postpartum depression comes into play, and like what your opinions are around like what triggers it, or you know, how to deal with it?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go first because I probably know a lot less. You can like give an expert testimonial, because I haven't experienced postpartum depression, of course. I have experienced depression, and I have supported friends and family members through postpartum depression. So I sort of know it from the outside in. But what I think is happening is maybe three things. One is like anytime we go through a change, it's scary. Like any kind of transition, like old parts of you are dying, new parts of you are coming forward, and everything that's sort of been your foundation is kind of gone. Like it's sort of like you're recovering from an earthquake. Like you kind of don't know where to step and how to stay stable. And on top of that, you have like a whole person that's like dependent on you for survival. So you're sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. And then there's a little baby who's like, can you help me survive? So it's on top of feeling unstable, it's also an immense responsibility. It's like a lot of juggling, but like with medicine balls, or like with like bowling balls. Okay. And then when you take on a large task and you feel like you don't have what you need, it kind of makes you just it almost makes you inert. Like you're just like, here's an enormous task in front of me, and here's an enormous mountain, and I have no arms or legs. So I'm just going to sit here and look at the mountain for a minute and try to figure it out. And you just become really still. That's sort of what I've seen on the one hand. On the other hand, I've had friends who felt happy. Like they're like, I'm happy and I love my baby and I am so grateful. And I don't understand why I can't move and I keep crying. And my plan is in place. Everything's working and I feel fine. I just can't stop crying. And I cannot bring myself to change this child's diaper. And I cannot feed, I cannot actually get up and eat. So I think what's happening there is an actual trauma. Like physical trauma damages a part of the brain that sort of allows you to take action, like your executor. So I think because they planned for everything except their own healing, like they planned to sleep and they planned for someone to come and cook and they planned for, like baths and stuff, but they didn't actually think about, I think part of our culture is we don't respect process, right? We love to get quickly to the payoff instead of enjoying not necessarily enjoying, but respecting the steps in between. So the itching and the rawness and those are steps you have to live through because there are lessons for you in there. But if you forget to prepare for them, then you can really get lost in them and think that you're never going to get the payoff. And then you just can't, that part of your brain, because it's sort of taking time to heal itself as you're also physically, it's physically healing and then you're physically healing in your reproductive tract. You just can't execute,
Okay.
So those are the two I've seen. And that's just, surface stuff looking at it.
But no, that's deep. No, I totally mirror what you're saying. I think the reverence for birth has been lost, right? And the deep kind of process of birth and the respect for it has been a little bit lost. And so I think when you're kind of thrown into it without coming with some kind of a front story about the reference, you're kind of thrown into it and you're totally just laid flat. And yeah, you're just holding this immense container in responsibility for protecting this little being with the whole, from the whole wide world, I remember with my first, I could not sleep when he was sleeping because I was like, is he breathing? And they were protected. They were protected inside of you. But once they're out, they're exposed to so many things. And there's this deep protection that you want to, instill. But at the same time that's happening, you're also recovering. And so you're working from a depleted state. And so all your hormones have completely dropped. They're really, really low. And your hormones are there. Your Jing is there to help you feel mentally, spiritually, emotionally well. That's what they're there for. And so when you're at a low point, it becomes difficult to hold that container all by yourself. And that's why community is so important. And that's why so many cultures, you're not left alone to do it by yourself because of that reason. It takes a village. And so you're constantly there, you're monitored to make sure that you're supported, fully supported. Because it's too much to kind of hold that big responsibility and container when you're just depleted.
One of my best friends was saying that pregnancy and postpartum is kind of like you have this parasite that's living inside of you, and it's just sort of eating everything. She was like, you have to eat because if you don't, it will take calcium out of your bones. That little parasite will it's going to get what it needs out of your body no matter what. And then it bursts out of you, in that movie where it comes, when aliens, it comes out of your chest, it bursts out of your body, and it's all loud and stuff. And
oh my gosh.
And then it attaches to you and it eats you from the outside in. It goes from eating you from inside to coming out and just being and like eating you
Feed
from the
me
outside.
now.
But you happen to be madly in love with this parasite. Like you happen to just like want to give it everything.
There's definitely a duality to that. And that could also be the reason why for so long you almost don't feel like yourself, because you're just attached to this being. And so I think some of us are really, really ready for that deep, deep attachment. But I think for some of us, we just have more attachment to kind of our old self and our old life, to where we're like, no, I'm independent. No, I'm this, I'm that. Right? And to be like merged with something so deeply.
Yeah.
And like forever from that point on, merged with this being, right? Because you're always going to be like a mother from that point on. And it's crazy. There's a really good article. It's called "The Breaking and Blessing of Motherhood."
I love that title. I love it.
Yeah, and it really just is that. It's like the best thing that will ever happen to you, and also a breaking. Of just everything, you know?
Yeah.
Breaking the mold of what you once were into something new, you know?
And I think part of why it takes 9 months is because it gives you a chance to start like releasing old parts of yourself that you don't need to take forward into this new phase.
Yeah. Maybe? That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's like just kind of pausing, taking stock. You have these 9 months to really reflect what you want to birth. Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. And your body's sort of like morphing into something new. So you're already thinking about newness and like, what am I anyway? Like, and what do I want to be? Like, how do I identify? And how is this sort of stretching of my core letting me identify as something else?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Wait, Vivi, do you have more questions? That was such a great question.
No, not at this point, but
okay.
Yeah, so we can get back to
our
regularly scheduled program. Sorry.
So have you read the fourth trimester vaginal steam study? Did you read it? You did? Okay. Can you share your first thoughts?
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's not really a surprise to me, but I really love how it was just done. And so that more people can actually see, because I feel like it meets our culture where we are. We're just very kind of logical, mind space, So I feel like when we take something as humble as vaginal steaming and put it in like a clinical trial and show people like in graphs and numbers, like, hey, it's beneficial. Let's start doing it. Come on. I think it's great. It's great to get it in that realm so that it can actually grow some legs and just start walking,
Yeah. I know that I have a couple of doctors and nurses as steam clients. Do you have like MDs, like Western medical practitioners as acupuncture clients?
I do not. I have, no, it's all kind of in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't actually had like an MD gynecologist. I haven't had that yet.
Yeah. I, with each of them, well, I shouldn't say each of them, but the ones I've asked if they would be willing to share with their colleagues the fact that they do steam and the benefits they've seen for themselves, they're just like, like they're just like, this is my workplace. People could talk. I could get, like people, it could mess up my job. Or they're just like, I would need to think about how to phrase it before I go talking about it. And then they all have just been like, I don't talk about my personal life at work.
Like, I don't trust these people. So.
I mean, it's an institution and it's pretty powerful. And it's like very solid in its understanding. But of course, if you dig a lot deeper, the history of gynecology in our country, and where it stems from. It's not pretty. And that's just kind of the roots and where the modern practice is practiced today. It's like with that same mindset, right?
Of like me,
so,
not you.
I mean, to kind of speak up against that is like to speak up against your entire profession, to speak up against your entire, like the institution of obstetrics and gynecology, because the Western practice has influenced so many other countries. And so you're kind of, I mean, I think it's probably great that individuals start doing it, but I think from the grassroots level, if we all kind of band together, it'll have like a grander, influence.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you
me, oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
please.
It makes me think of Kelly Brogan. Do you know Kelly Brogan? Yeah, like she's a psychiatrist, but she's like totally speaking out against her profession and like the medicalization and pharma, laden practice of psychology or psychiatry, and she doesn't do that at all in her practice. And she's written a couple books that have been blacklisted, but she's still doing it. But it's kind of one voice and in like the whole institution.
And I
So.
see, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So on that topic, what do you think are like the greatest implications for this study? Like, it's sort of like a one step into what? Like, what do you think would be like?
I feel like if it just did one small thing, it would trickle. So if it just made people realize the impact of postpartum progression with and without the steaming, it'll just highlight how women are not taken care of.
Yeah.
I think if that small thing gets through, then I think the conversation will start to happen. And I think if they just see like, hey, there is opportunity to kind of prevent a lot of birth traumas, a lot of, medical expenses kind of after the fact, if they can kind of see it in numbers and stuff like that, I think the conversation will start to happen where maybe there'll be a paradigm shift in really approaching postpartum differently in our country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe instead of trickling, maybe it'll waft like steam. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But it's already happening. I mean, from the first time kind of Kelly and I were talking about me steaming, she's like, Chris, you're Korean, right? Do you know about vaginal steaming? I'm like, yes. She's like, I'm thinking about starting a company. From like way back then.
I remember.
Yeah. So, I mean, it started off really small, but like it's really big now, and it's going to get bigger and bigger, and to where you can't deny it. You just can't deny it.
Yeah, it's true. If I could ask you one more question, and this is sort of off topic, but do you know the name of the practice that's like this in Korea, and then you like move fluids through the body by like beating people up, kind of?
Body?
Yeah, but with cupped hands.
I think it stems from qigong because
I'm sorry.
when my mom like used to live in Korea and she'd walk up the mountain like to do her morning walk, like all the grandmas, ajimas are out there,
and then
in lines like all on each other. Okay, turn around. Yeah, I think it just stems from qigong. It's like and honestly, it's like, I know energy medicine is so woo-woo right now, but energy medicine is just the application of energy. Like, am I going to put energy into like moving stuff around, or am I put energy into feeding stuff in? It's energy medicine. And yeah, so Qigong, working with your energy, working with your body.
Yeah. Yeah. I very randomly, and Ajima came in. She was really like, oh my gosh. I'm forgetting the word for grandmother. It's not halabuji. That's grandfather. What's it?
Harmony.
Harmony. Yeah. Like there was like a harmony who just sort of stopped me on the street and just started like kicking my ass kind of. And she was talking to me the whole time, but my Korean wasn't good. Like I had very sort of exchange pleasantries level Korean. And I also I was quite far in the South, so I didn't understand her accent too. And I was just like, she's just beating my ass. But like, but I just felt I felt awful that day. But then the next morning when I woke up, I just felt like myself. Like I just had all of this energy and the sun was shining and like, I just felt like a new person. And I was like, do I need to get beat up on a regular basis by an old lady? Like what is... And I think with my friends who were sort of like my age, either, I don't know if it's considered like a countryside practice, but like my friends were all sort of like modern city girls. And they were just like, she hit you? Like, and I was like, no. I was like, you guys, it's Korean. And they're like, that's not Korean. Like, they just weren't helpful. So I've been trying to find out what this practice is like. And what it's called.
I mean, I'll ask my mom. I'm sure there's a specific name for it, but she does it to herself all the time. She does it to her face too.
Yeah.
So, every time she's putting on her serums and stuff, it's all.
Yeah.
I'll ask her.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but I feel like that goes to show, how sad it is that these like really kind of ancient things that have been around, if you ask your Haimani, maybe even your auntie, maybe they know about it, but then like the younger cultures are just kind of losing that,
Yeah. Sort of in service of conformity, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. Baby, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, my mind just started wandering, thinking about like that kind of practice. And wondering what else is out there for me to get beat up by.
I mean, it made a lot. I know that we have lots of different fluids that are important for our body's health. Yeah. And the only one that has like a legit pump is the blood. Everything else, like it needs other stuff to move around. Yeah. And we have this sort of sedentary, I had ridden on a bus to get to the South. So I had been on a bus for, it was like Chuseok time. So I had been on the bus for like 40 hours, whatever, however long it was. So not 40, that was wrong, like 12 hours. Yeah. So I think I was walking kind of stiffly and I had some back problems and I was living there. So I think she just saw me walking funny and was like, foreigner, like, let me fix you up real quick.
Yeah. So lymph we need to actually circulate it because it doesn't have its own pump. And it's just the concept, like circulation is life, and when you have pain, that means that something is stuck. So you just break it up and move it. That's why you need to massage your breast, because that's like lymph tissue, fat tissue, it doesn't have its own real circulation there. So
yeah,
kind of massage them.
That's true. Well, as always, I've learned so much from you today, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It's been fun.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. Will you tell our audiences where to find you and follow you and learn all of your contributions?
Yeah. So my website is thewayofyin.com. And that's also on Instagram, the name you can look up.
Okay.
The Way of Yin.
And we'll have that linked on our website as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Now it's time for
Mansplaining with Mike. Was that a cool sound effect?
That was interesting. I'll add some stuff in post. All right. So today we had the lovely Chris. What's her last name?
Gonzalez.
Chris Gonzalez. And man, it was a really great conversation.
She's so brilliant.
Yeah, like seriously brilliant. We had a really good conversation about tons of things. I learned a lot during this episode.
Samesies.
And, we just got to get down and have some really nice conversation. So, she spoke briefly about her upbringing, being Korean American, and how that impacted her as a child, the duality of both cultures and navigating between the two, as it relates to health and the health of people around her and her own self. Early in the conversation, we ended up talking about acupuncture, in which I don't have much experience in because I'm not trying to get stuck. I ain't trying to pay people to stick me with stuff. Even though it's like ancient medicine, I'm like, nah, bruh, keep them needles to yourself. Now I'm talking about.
Have you had an immunization?
Yeah. I've had shots.
So
I've had shots before. So I let.
And shot needles are like.
They're a lot
and
longer.
Acupuncture needles are
like really tiny
and really thin.
Yeah. But ain't those the ones that hurt the most? No, I'm just playing. I just have not taken the opportunity to get acupuncture, but I wouldn't mind it. I've just never actually done it. But I think that's something that we will plan to do in the near future, so that I can do that. She talked about just a little bit about acupuncture as it relates to maintaining female reproductive health. And then we went on to just talking about a course that you took with her, that I believe I don't know if y'all said it on the podcast, but you said before that it was like a 4-month long course, 2 months or 6 weeks, something like that. A pretty extensive course about the vulva specifically, and like everything relating it, like how things affected and all that stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. And we talked about, of course, steaming and her approach to her introduction to steaming, and she introduced us to smoking as well. So we need to look into that. And we could actually do that stuff here at home because we have all the stuff necessary to do it. But I'm interested in smoking it. And she said her teacher was like, keep the stem hot and the balls cool. So that'll be a challenge. I just keep picturing myself being horizontal. Trying to do it. No, I'm just playing.
This is how my full circle chair is designed.
Yeah, I'm just playing.
Okay.
Like, can I lay down? So we talked about vaginal steaming, and of course, a lot of the history in it, and people doing it in Korea, and people doing it all over the country. I mean, the world. Yeah. Wait, no. What was the three? I don't even know what they're called. Can you help me with that?
The 3 golden opportunities.
The 3 golden opportunities.
They all start with the letter M. Remember, she was like, Mama, Mama.
Okay, what are they?
Oh, no. You don't remember?
No.
Okay, the first one is menarche.
Menarche. That is... Wait. Menarche is... So we got... What, we got one...
When you first... Not you.
You first have the baby.
Period.
First have a period. That's
Yeah,
menarche.
matrescence.
Matrescence is when you first have the baby.
Mm-hmm. And then menopause.
And then menopause, that's later on when you no longer have a period
Mm-hmm.
and can't have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then what do you remember why those are golden opportunities? Like what they're a golden opportunity to do?
Yes. Because it is around your jing or due to your jing. And the jing is like your life force. And it's like, it's who you are. It's the origins like of your body. Like if you take care of your jing takes care of you. Like you take care of your body. Like you have these opportunities to really affect your body in a positive way. Like give it the right nourishment and the right, attention that the body actually needs versus like what you want to give it. And it will carry you and it'll be generous back to you and it'll give you a longer, healthier life if you treat those opportunities well, like they should be treated. All right. I think that's all I got for it.
Okay.
I yawned all the way through this one. It is not her fault. It was amazing. I just did not get enough sleep, so I'm sorry. And this was,
Okay. Wait, can I remind you of one?
Yes, please.
Do you remember the conversation about the relationship between food
Yes.
and reproductive health, and specifically the mountain?
Yeah. She spoke about just the idea that things flow like water off of a mountain, flows from top to bottom. So just thinking about like the food you put in your mouth or whatever enters your mouth, like goes through like your mouth and then your sinuses and like mucus stuff and goes down your throat and like all the way down your body and like comes out of your holes. And so everything travels that way. So whatever you put in will affect your reproductive systems. Like whatever you put in at the top is gonna come out at the bottom. And everything's gonna be affected in the process. So like, like whatever's coming in, I'm talking about. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah.
That was awful.
Yeah, but it was also good. You know the rule. You have to hear something 3 times to believe it exists and 5 times to believe it's true.
Yeah.
All right.
And be awake when you hear it.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful episode of the Hot
and Steamy
Podcast.
What are these long tones? Okay, thank you.
And thank you again, Kristin.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hot and Steamy Podcast. Feedback is gold, so please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This podcast was made possible by our sponsors Kelly Garza of Steamy Chick and Kimberly Ann Johnson of Magamamas. Visit our website for more information on them and our other guests, to view extras, and to purchase merch. That's www.hotsteamypodcast.com. www.hotsteamypodcast.com.